Thank you for listening to the Data is My Science podcast, the show that makes data your passion. With your host, Dapper Data.
Let's go.
Are you ready to listen? Are you ready to listen, my Dolio?
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Data is My Science podcast, the show that makes data your passion. This is your host, Dapper Data. As always, it's a pleasure to be sitting here in front of y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I have a special guest. I'll introduce him in a little bit, but just to talk about, we always say that data is used everywhere. And so I looked at restaurants, right? I looked at restaurants as a topic for this week because with technology advances, more restaurants have access to a ridiculous amount of data, and it's even real time now. So you got multiple systems to be able to multiple point of sale systems and all that good stuff. But with the right approach and process in place, this data can be used to reveal many things like different insights and stuff, different patterns and uniqueness within a restaurant or business. And so, so I want to introduce somebody. I got a special guest on now. His name is Peter Mensah. Say what's up, Pete.
Hey everyone, how you guys doing?
Yeah. So Pete, man. So I've known Pete. This is like a brother to me. I always say I got a couple people that y'all probably seen already that are like brothers to me. It's like 8 of us, man. We all tight. But this dude right here, man, is probably one of the closest. We met each other at Bowie State University, so we went there, BSU Bulldogs, and and we started off actually knowing each other before our freshman year actually started. We were in this. I was in a summer technology and math program or something like that, and Pete was in another program, and so we would see each other back and forth, but the real way that we met each other was in football. It was when I hit him one time, and smacked him, and he was like, "Man, I gotta get to know you." Like, nah, nah, I'll just play. Nah. But yeah, man, with me and Pete, man, we grew closer and closer through football, and he's actually the godfather of my oldest son, Bobby, B3. So yeah, Pete, man, tell them a little bit about yourself, man, what you do, man, and what you're doing right now with restaurants.
Well, as you mentioned, my name is Peter Mensah. Bobby and I do have a long history, but I currently work as a contracts manager for a defense contractor here in the States. But I also, along with some partners, have some ventures in Ghana, West Africa. One of the very first things we launched is a restaurant, a full service restaurant. And that's what I'll be speaking to you guys about today.
Yeah, thanks, man. And the interesting thing is, not only one of them partners is me, and there's also Paul, who you all have seen, the pharmacist beforehand, but yeah, that's how close our relationship is, but Pete, man, I probably call him the godfather of the restaurant, as well, but he handles a lot of the operations and, definitely jumped in. He knows about how everything kind of works around with the restaurant itself, so he would be the best person. Me, I'm just a tech guy, but he would be the best person to understand and to really talk about and chop it up about how data is being used in restaurants in general, but maybe specific to how we do things out there in Ghana, because it's different. It's different. Me and Pete we're always going back and forth and stuff, and he's always explaining to me how it is different. You got restaurant businesses out there, but the States, the U.S., right, is different from going out to another country and stuff and trying to run business that way. So even from a data standpoint, we'll probably bring in somebody that handles data maybe in the States more than anything. But yeah, Pete, man. So where do you see, or how do you see data kind of being used in restaurants these days?
Well, in general, I think it's a very helpful tool. Like in most organizations, having access to information and understanding the real-time impacts of decisions that are being made, and also understanding the needs of your customers, helps you make better informed decisions. So in that sense, I guess the data kind of cuts across a lot of different industries. But for us, and specifically for Ghana, we are still learning to see how we can use the myriad of information that we're actually gathering to our advantage. We're seeing how we can use it to improve our service time for customers. We're seeing how we can use it to make sure that customers are getting the things that they like to get when they're in our place. We are seeing how to target certain customers who have shown a particular interest in certain items.
Right.
So we use it in a variety of ways.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like customer data is probably one of the first places you can kind of start, right? Like trying to collect, if you collect customer data in the beginning, you can get a lot of information of it because like most businesses collect some like specific measures of data like already, maybe like basic contact info or or like a name or like an email, like a phone number or street address and stuff like that. And those are great ways to kind of begin. And for us, we've been starting out, right? We've only been in business. How long has the restaurant? Was it like two years, 3 years?
We're
Yeah,
2 years in,
yeah.
currently in our third year.
Yeah. So like a lot of people would probably think like, man, if they're hearing this stuff, they're like, I need to start probably collecting all this data right now. But with us, we're in the third year and we haven't even scratched the surface as to what we can probably collect. And that stuff takes time. A lot of people don't understand. And in the restaurant business, it's um, like how much you want to retain, like how much data you want to retain is kind of up to you. But that basic info that we just talked about, like the emails and phone numbers and things like that, that's where you can kind of start. And other fields, I don't know if you think about this, a lot of fields are starting to collect things like food allergies or like favorite dishes from the past or something like that, right? Even their birthdays. So like those things are like really important because I mean, I might want to throw a birthday coupon out to somebody or something like that, right? And then that might entice people to come in and get a discount and all that stuff. So yeah, that's a good point. And the ways you can collect that, shoot, you can just be straightforward with your intentions and probably just ask them straight up, and say, hey, look, let me just collect this data, and it never hurts. I mean, what about like incentives? Do you think incentives like help out with
And
trying to do that as well?
yeah, I think the obviously you always have to be sensitive to the fact that you are collecting personal information from people.
Right.
Some people are more willing to part with certain personal information if they view it as not being too intrusive.
Right.
For us, our approach to the whole thing is just to let them know that we are gathering this information in order to be able to improve our service to them,
Right.
and to also enhance their overall experience in our facilities. So there's a tangible trade-off for these customers who decide to take part in some of the data exchanges that we do. Because for us, one of the key things that we actually launched at the beginning of this year, and this was at the behest of Bobby Roundtree, yours truly, was an incentive program for customers to basically loyalty rewards,
Right.
and just simply the key thing is also is having, I guess, a good partner to work with, to do this collection. Because obviously if you're a restaurant, your I guess your knowledge base is in the food industry, not necessarily in
Right.
IT. So
Right.
being able to have a system that kind of can gather this information, put it to
Mm-hmm.
use for you properly, and also secure it for you, so people
Mm.
trust that their data is going to be protected and not it's not going to be just out there all willy-nilly for people to just be misusing. That's a good thing. But this program essentially just it takes just simple basic information from our guests, and with that we basically give them an opportunity to partake in an ongoing loyalty experience. So the more frequent they come to the place, they get a chance to earn additional savings, earn various packages that we give out. So it ends up being a win-win. But it's always good to just inform the guests as to why some of the data is being collected and what is being used for. And usually when you help people see the benefits that's in it for them, they tend to be on board with sharing the information.
Yeah, that loyalty program is important. I didn't even like just thinking about that. It collects some information that people don't understand how valuable this information is, but just your email address and your phone number. If I can get a hold of a customer's email address and phone number as data, I can reach out to them on a consistent basis, and then they're saying, hey, I feel like I'm being loved. I might want to go to a restaurant. I want to give me coupons. I mean, you're giving me discounts and things like that. You can probably reach out to some of these the bigger customers, right? Like we met that group that was out there where like I'm able to get, when we say bigger customers, we're like some of these corporations.
Corporate customers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Giving them getting more data to get them. So now we're talking about big parties and not just individual people, right?
Yeah.
And so you're bringing in parties and stuff. So that's important, but yeah, that's good information. So
yeah, and to piggyback on what you just said, like one of the things we offered on our loyalty program was that a lot of people normally inquire about reserving the place, our space for events. So we put on there as a potential if you earn enough points, you could reserve the place at free of charge. So when some of these individuals noticed that on the loyalty program, they got their companies on board. So more people from their company are eating there to kind of accrue points for the company. So at the end of the year, they can use the facility for their end of the year party.
Right.
So these are all things that that indirectly we got the benefit from by virtue of starting this data exchange and getting more people exposed to our company.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I mean, it all leads to money, right? That's what we're trying to do, get this money, right? But yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about that's reaching out to the customers, right? The external thing, which is important because the customer data is where you kind of start. But then when you start like talking about processes and how to make it more timely and everything like that, that's like important too. So looking into our restaurant itself, right? Looking at the kitchen data, I think is important as well. And like you'll want to collect some of the data on your kitchen that's specific to the inventory and the food prep and things like that. And there's so many numbers. There's like a ridiculous amount of information that you can collect with the kitchen. But the most important data, I mean, you might have some other ideas, and everything, but like the time, right? Like how fast do they cook and things like that, right? Like how long does it take, right? And there's probably more to that because there might be some times where like where certain things might interfere with it. But if you just know like, okay, the average time to cook this it's good to keep tabs on that food prep time and stuff. What's your thoughts on that? Like how important you think that is?
I think you're absolutely right. Obviously, with most restaurants, it's critical to be able to get food out to guests in a reasonable amount of time. And I will say this: it's probably a bit of it's just a cultural thing, but Ghanaians are they like to have their food on demand.
Right there.
When I say it, have it ready. So, but at the same time, restaurants being that the way it is, it takes time to prep the food and to get it ready. So obviously, they're understanding how to monitor that and being able to get things out in a timely manner to guests. That's always critical. You mentioned inventory, knowing what is in, knowing how things are moving, knowing what is moving. It helps. It helps greatly because it allows you to basically keep from stocking things that aren't moving. and having money trapped in products that just aren't moving. So just knowing what is selling, knowing what is doing well, and being able to always making sure that you have enough of it on hand is always critical.
Right.
Um, I guess another aspect that we also utilize data internally. It's just being able to know our peak times, our busy times,
Mm,
just keeping track of things like that.
right,
And
right,
also trying to be aware of what is moving well during the peak times so that we know what to make sure we have enough amounts of during certain times and during certain days. So
mhm,
all of that, and for being able to have access to all that information through both our POS system
right,
and other means is always helpful. It helps us inform. It helps inform the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis
right.
in terms of how to operate and to keep things
Right,
going.
right. And what you're trying to do is really remove some of those bottlenecks and stuff, right? Because it's like a
Hmm.
lot of like choke points that you can run into within that workflow, right? Because a
Yeah,
lot of people don't understand. I mean, it's not just about me putting this food out. It's not just about me serving this drink or this dish and stuff, but it's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes
yeah.
that you have to go through just to make the whole workflow process, happen efficiently.
And for
And
us, it's mostly just our vendors and
yeah.
sourcing products, the raw materials we need in order to prepare the food.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And they can
so
help out with
just
that too, like the inventory, we talking about like the vendors,
mhm,
like they definitely can help out with that, like getting information data about unit prices, right? Or like
mhm.
the food inventory, like you said, the suppliers, some of the data points you should include, are like those things, but there's probably other data that the vendors and stuff can provide to help you be able to say, well, hey, okay, I get this at this time, this speed and things like that as well. But yeah, man, you bring up some good points with that, man, for sure. You know, what about like guest management, man? Like, do you like so now that like we've talked about kitchen, we talked a little bit about inventory and stuff, and the
Mhm.
individual customer data. Focusing on guest management data is important, and there's like this probably can get more into like the mathematical things or equations or calculations and stuff really, but some of the the data like the wait times, right? Like how long does it take to wait for your food when you're in the drive when you're trying to do a pickup, or how long does it take to wait for your food when you're just sitting down, right? From everything from having them sit down to how long does it take for them to get somebody to reach out to say, hey, what's your order? Excuse me. And then also say, well, hey, how long does it take for them to get that drink or that food, right? All that stuff matters. And even the average party size, like how big are your parties in any given time period, or like average like guest count, like how big is the amount of guests you have at any time period, right? So those type of things are important. Do you see that being like important data to collect in a
Yeah.
restaurant?
Yes, it's all critical because obviously you always want to find ways to improve the experience because if people are having positive experience at your establishment, the chances are they'll come back, they'll bring a friend, and
Right,
that
right,
kind of has a trickle down, a trickle effect where it just a multiplier effect. It just keeps happening over and over. So
right,
we try to do our best to pay attention to those things and whenever possible, if we see any issues, make those adjustments and corrections as we go.
right. And even like seating capacity, right? Like seating
Hmm.
efficiency and all that stuff is important. If you feel like you're not using your seating capacity to its full potential, well, how do we do that, right? It's about the data and stuff. Well, if you're worried, you could even be getting like guests seated quicker. Maybe we're getting them, maybe we're getting guests seated like really, really slow or something like that. I mean, we throw a lot of events, out there now, where it's the karaoke night one time, sometime where they're coming out there to do salsa dancing, all that type of stuff, and being able to collect that type of data is important too, because that tells you like, well, how many people are coming to these events? That lets you know whether you want to make a decision to keep the event going or
Hmm.
not
Yep.
as well, for some of that guest management
Yeah.
process. So that's important. And, what about like financial data, right? Like, I mean, we talked about the other stuff, right? But if we get into the finances, right, and we're trying to sustain ourselves financially, the ability for a restaurant to keep track of like profits and loss and cash flow and the cost of things, right? Like the actuals and then the projections. Like we always at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, we're like, all right, we sat down, me, you, and Paul, we sat down, we had this dope meeting, and we're like, this is what we project or this is what we kind of want, right? In theory, it's all great, but then we got to do that with the actuals, to get realistic stuff, going on, like where do you see some of that stuff? Do you see like collecting data on like your profits, collecting data on like the wages, the revenues, and all stuff like that? You see that being important?
Yes, like you said at the beginning, like making money is I guess the bottom line of every business endeavor is you want to try to make a profit. So
Right.
that is very critical. And there's a lot of different ways to. One of the key things for me anyway is I like to see where we are spending money. That is my
Mm,
number one thing because you always have to manage your outflows. So the key thing is tracking and monitoring where money is being spent and making sure that we are always getting value for our money.
right.
Those are the things that really helps us stay afloat because most restaurants, especially in today's environment, with everything that's going on in the world, it's critical. If you are not paying attention to these things and finding ways to be resourceful, it can really be an issue. So just paying attention to those markers and finding ways to track those things. And luckily for us, we have systems that kind of helps us with
Mm,
all of that. We track every dollar that goes
right.
out, every city
So we
that
don't have to
goes out.
manually do it, right? We don't have to
No,
manually do it. We got the systems
exactly.
in place. So
It, it,
what are some of those systems? Because I know you handle most of that stuff, man. But what are some of
well,
those?
we have an accounting system,
Right.
QuickBooks Online. We have a POS system, EPOS now.
Mhm.
Um, and this is not a shout out or recommendation to EPOS now. I'm
All
not being
right.
paid, so I'm not giving you no
Exactly. No
recommendation.
recommendation. Pay us.
So, but for what we like to do and what the visibility that we like to have into things, those systems in general kind of helps us to be able to do that.
Right, man. That's definitely important, man. Looking at like the total food costs and things like that too. When you're looking at the financial data. But like you said, I mean, like these systems, there's systems out there. So you don't have to
Yeah,
really. I mean, some people used to do it back in the day manually and stuff. You keep the Excel spreadsheet, writing everything down. But that leaves room for so much like human error.
yeah,
That it's important to understand that. And so you do have systems out here that collect data on a regular
yeah.
basis. All you gotta do is put it into the system, like
Mhm.
you said, using EPOS now. We're able to do it with our POS system. If you got a point of sale system, they probably got different branches or avenues or apps and stuff that you can start to use to collect more data, right? To reach out to people and things like that. If you wanted to, or just using a basic point of sale system to keep track of inventory
Yeah.
is important. You know, so I think that's something that's important, man. But yeah, man. I really appreciate you being on this call, man. And I hope y'all all are listening and understanding that restaurants are one of those um, other avenues of collecting data. It's really important. Is probably in every industry and every business that you can imagine. Data is important, but restaurants in general. I mean, we didn't even.
Data is life.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I always talk about it. But like we talked about a little, and we only did high level stuff. But there's so many things that we haven't even scratched the surface on, as far as like cash flow projections and all that stuff like that. We talk about that's the financial data stuff. We can talk more about like how to get this information too, right? Calculating stuff manually, numbers of tables, numbers of parties, things like that. Um, and there's so many reasons why you need the kitchen data, the guest management data, the contact list. It doesn't always have to be about, well, how can I make profit initially, because it all goes to that part, right? When you're grabbing customer data, it's you're eventually it is about making money, but at the end of the day, like, you have those small avenues that you're taking, to get to that point, and
And it's building relation. It helps you maintain and to build these relationships with guests that grow over time. Because and for us anyway, we want people to feel like they're vested in the place, because more people they're likely to come and continue to come to places that they feel value them and value their patronage. And
right, customer
and
service, right?
all that information helps us to be able to be better at
Yeah.
maintaining those relationships with our guests.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's a great point. It's like customer service. Customer service is probably one of the main reasons why people collect this data. Amazon probably was one of the people who first started this, but like they started collecting data to bring value to the customers. And we can bring better value at the restaurants to customers if we know more information about them. Everything from like what's their favorite foods and things like that. If you get that, you can offer deals, like, oh, you like you like this fufu? You like the fufu? All right, well, if you like the fufu, then we got you and stuff. If you like these certain wings with a specific sauce on it, and we know that that's what you like, then we're going to offer you a 5% discount maybe one day on these specific wings and stuff, because we want you to come in, give us your business, but we also want to build that relationship, because we want to give you what you really want and need, not just give you everything, but we want to say, hey, look, we know exactly what you need. We know your likes, your dislikes and stuff, and shoot, if we know we have a certain DJ or something playing that night, and we know everybody likes this DJ and stuff, well, we got you, we're always going to send this information out to you because we collected the data and that's your favorite DJ, that night. So we like that, we do that type of stuff, but yeah, thanks again, Pete, man. I'm
Very welcome.
I really appreciate it, man. And as always, listeners, you're listening to the Data is My Science podcast, the show that makes data a passion. I am your host, Dapper Data, and you can reach me at Mr. Dapper Data. That's MrDapperData. You can also reach us, reach Pete, at the code 117, and I appreciate it, man. Love y'all. Talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Data is My Science podcast, the show that makes data your passion, with your host, Dapper Data.